Giants fans, I hope you're ready because the Jaxson Dart era kicks off Sunday. Are we headed for a darty party against the Chargers or more of the same? Brian Burns said it's on the defense to protect Dart. And hear who Paul thinks needs to make a play. It's week 4 already? This is Blue Rush. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 4, Blue Rush, your preview for the Giants, Chargers, and that's happening at MetLife Stadium at 1 p.m. This is your Giants show for the New York Post Sports. You see Paul Schwartz there, a longtime Giants beat writer. Later in the show, we're going to have Brian Burns. He doesn't want Jaxson Dart to play like a savior. Jermaine Eluemunor is not satisfied with this team's production, so hear what he's going to do about it. And we have Bobby Skinner of Giants Nation breaking down Jaxson Dart's mobility and what he likes most about this move. But Paul, unfortunately, 0-3, heading into a must-win at MetLife Stadium for a myriad of reasons. Did you think we would be at this point right now? Why this move right now, sir?
Yeah, I did not think it would be this soon, but I'm not shocked after what I saw the first 3 games. You know, you said, wow, it's week 4 already. Is it? Or is it week 1? Right? I mean, is this the start of a new season? Well, no, because you can't take the 0-3 record away and what the Giants have done and mostly what they have not done. But yeah, I thought that Russ would get more of a window to prove that he can still have something left. But you know what? This is the Russell Wilson that Seattle Seahawks saw down the stretch of his great career there, what the Broncos saw for most of his 2 years, certainly his second year, and what the Steelers saw for in and out of a lot of the season last year. So the Giants signed him with hopes that he could come in, have a little more left in the tank, be a great pro, be a great mentor to any young quarterbacks that they might get. Don't forget, they signed him before they ever drafted Jaxson Dart. They had no idea if they would get Jaxson Dart or any quarterback in the first round. So Russell Wilson, it was mission. It worked for some of it, but off the field it worked, which is nice. But you need it on the field. It did not work on the field in 2 of the 3 games, and that middle game against the Cowboys was basically Caleb Williams showed what the Cowboys defense is last week when he torched them. So the Cowboys defense is awful. They have no idea how to defend the middle of the field and defend deep routes. So Russell Wilson took advantage of that. Good for him. But here are the 2 key stats, Brandon, I would say. 2 for 10 in the red zone. I'll give you 3 key stats. 2 for 10 in the red zone. Russell Wilson has gotten them into position enough, but he just could not make the big play. I believe he's 4 for 20, 4 completions in 20 attempts in the red zone. And last week, Brian Daboll kept harping on we were 1 for 10 on third down, and the passing game needs to improve. I think Brian Daboll eventually looked at himself and said, you know what? Jaxson Dart, the rookie, can go 1 for 10 on third down. You know what I mean? Yep. You know, he thinks he'll do better. So what are we saving him for? Russ is not getting it done. We can see what we can see here. So that's why it was made. I mean, you know, the front office wanted it later, but the front office didn't fight this because they see what everyone is seeing. No one wanted to see Russell Wilson out there for a 4th game. That's all there is to it. I mean, maybe he would have played well against the Chargers. Maybe he wouldn't have. But the trend was down, and now we start fresh with a new young quarterback, and, you know, we'll see how that goes.
Well, I was at practice yesterday. Jaxson Dart spoke after practice, and, you know, usually when you talk about that swagger that he has and you know how engaging he is with the media, you can tell someone was in his ear before he walked up there to make sure he didn't say any of the wrong things. But I think he said the right things, especially saying that he is ready. I'm going to play a little clip, Paul, and then we're going to go talk about if the Giants have what's needed to give Dart a chance to succeed. But here's Jaxson yesterday after practice.
What was your emotion right after being told?
I'm ready. So it wasn't anything extra. It was really just, you know, now I feel like it's, you always try to say, like, I'm going to prepare each week the same. But, you know, in all reality, you have a different, you know, responsibilities as the starter. So, you know, I'm just locked in.
I'm getting a lot of texts in the group chats and in the DMs like, is he ready? Do you really think that he's ready? He's as ready as he's going to be. And like you said, Brian Dable can have Jaxson Dart go 1 for 20 or 2 for 10 in the red zone. But I think why the move was made was because his athleticism. When you're watching that tape, especially in the red zone, Paul, they are rushing 4 and dropping 7. And the fact that what Jaxson Dart showed on tape in the preseason, and I know it's preseason, he showed the big arm that everybody loved. He showed the moxie that everyone fell in love with. But he had a couple scrambles where he got himself out of some danger and got positive yards. Not even just a 5 or 6 yard scramble. He had a 19-yarder, and then he had another big one against the Patriots that, he kind of got knocked out of the game, so we'll talk about him sliding. But this is that final element, well, one of the final elements or infinity stones that the Giants offense needs. They're going to have to get the run game going somehow to protect them. That's one thing. But on these third downs, in these red zone situations where a play needs to be extended and not just have a quarterback just kind of concede to the pass rush, a play needs to be made to open up and unlock Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Malik Nabers. And I think it is his athleticism that is well needed at that quarterback position for this offense. We'll see how it goes. But Jermaine Eluemunor, Brian Burns, they all said the same thing when I talked to them in the locker room. Just his ability to extend the play is something that this offense needs desperately.
Look, he's a rookie. What did Brian Dable say when announcing this? He also said, when is Jaxson Dart ready? He said, no rookie is ready. No rookie is ever ready. He will make mistakes, okay? You can't take 13 or 14 years of what Russell Wilson knows and say, okay, discard that. Now Jaxson is ready and he's more athletic. He's not ready. He will make mistakes. But you're comparing him to a guy who was really not functioning at a high enough level.
Yeah.
So, and they're 0-3. So what is the reason to wait? Wait one more game, 2 more games, wait one more game. Maybe they lose to the Chargers. Then maybe Russ can figure out a way to beat the lousy Saints. And now they're 1-4. I mean, at some point the clock has to start, and it was up to Russell Wilson and the offense to keep that stopwatch stopped. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
he couldn't do it. It ran out on him. I thought what that short clip we showed, you could see it in Jaxson Dart's face, right? He looked fine, but when he said, you always say, I'm always ready. I always prepare the same. But in reality, you don't when you're the starter, which was exactly right and very mature and a very interesting thing to say, right? When you're the backup, you're running the scout team. You're not getting first team reps. And you could see that sense of responsibility hit him. Okay, I am the starter now.
Yeah.
This week, I am getting the first team reps. I am not doing the scout team. Now I'm throwing to Malik and Slayton and Wan'Dale and Theo Johnson, and now it's me. His whole short Giants stay so far, he has never been the starter. He hasn't prepared like the starter. Even in training camp, he got the reps with the twos. It's a whole different animal right now. And I just think people have to realize he is going to make mistakes. It could look good in this beginning and then peter off. It could look bad in the beginning and hopefully get better. Eli Manning was terrible when he first took over in 2004. I mean, really bad. He was the number 1 pick of the Chargers, and the Giants traded for him, and the Giants were going to let him have as much leash as he could have. And, eventually Eli got it, obviously. So I think that this is going to be something where, and Darius Slayton said this last week, look, I hope that all the people saying Russ has to go, then will give Jaxson Dart, the rookie, some grace if he makes mistakes, because he will make mistakes. That's what rookie quarterbacks do. The Giants, remember in the draft, Brandon, who do the Giants really, really, really want? Cam Ward, right?
Yep.
They would have traded up in a minute to get him. He was not available. Okay? So they looked at Cam Ward as a significantly higher prospect than Jaxson Dart. They would trade up to 1 and get Cam Ward, and they traded up to 25 to get Jaxson Dart. Cam Ward, if he was able to be acquired in the trade, would have started from day 1 for the Giants, okay? Jaxson Dart did not. How's Cam Ward doing?
Struggling a little bit, just like
0
any
and,
rookie.
0 and 3.
Yep.
Yeah, 0 and 3, 54%, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He doesn't look awful. He looks like a rookie
Yep.
with a bad team, right? A rookie with a bad team. The Giants feel that Jaxson Dart is coming into a better environment, a better situation than most rookies, first round picks do. We'll see if they do. The Giants have overvalued their players, I think, to a certain degree. They feel, now with Andrew Thomas back, that's stable. Eluemunor, as you mentioned, is a good player. Malik and Skattebo a little bit, and Slayton and wan'dale. They don't think he's coming into a rebuilding situation. So we'll see. But he will make mistakes because they all do.
Well, if that's the case, if everyone that you just named has to step up and make a play on Sunday, and some of those guys that you named are big money guys, you got to make more than one play. I don't want to see any drops from the perimeter. I want to see Theo Johnson involved. But I think the biggest thing in terms of making a play, and I'll ask you who you think needs to step up, but I think the play calling needs to step up then in this situation. And you got to be able to rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to this kid. You have to – I want them to call – or have a game plan that doesn't have training wheels on it for this kid. Because if you try to protect him too much with the calls, maybe a 3rd and long, and you just run some sort of draw to concede, so you don't want him to put him in any sort of dangerous situation. What do we do as fathers? What do we do when we kind of overprotect our kids, Paul? We don't protect them for the real world and what NFL football or life is really going to be like. So let it rip. You get, like you said, you got nothing to lose here. Guys, people are calling for people's jobs. People are second guessing. Is he the right coach? Is he the right GM? There's just a lot of noise and mayhem going on here. And Brian Daboll has pulled his big joker out. Here's the big joker. We're playing spades. This is it when it comes to this kid. So if you feel as though in 3 or 4 weeks he's been able to have the headset on, kind of prepare like a quarterback one, listen to Russ, watch how Russ galvanizes everything, but put your own seasoning on it. Make it your own brand of football. Let him cook. But on the outsides, there cannot be a drop on 3rd down from a Darius Slayton, from a Malik Nabers. Can't have that. Got to extend drives for this kids, and you have to find a way to run the football without trying to overforce it to now you put him in a 2nd and long, 3rd and long situation. You have to – these guys, Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll, my binoculars are going to be on those two guys and what they do this game, because here's your guy. Go cook with them.
Yeah, look, I mean, what did Tom Coughlin used to say? So he just used to go, like, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Everybody, let's go. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, like I said, this is not a barren kitchen here with nothing, nothing for Jaxson Dart to utilize here. It's interesting, like I mentioned, Andrew Thomas is back. I thought it would have been a disservice to put Jaxson Dart on the field before Andrew Thomas got back. Now he's back. He played 25 snaps the first game. Maybe he can play 50 this game, which would, every snap he takes is going to be a better deal for the Giants. Yeah, this is not just like, okay, now we got Jaxson, everything's okay. We'll figure it out. This team has been searching for the quarterback, right? And they built the team. And what happened last year? They brought 10 of the 11 starters back and changed the quarterback to Russell Wilson. They hoped it would last longer with Russell Wilson. It did not. Now they have Jaxson. Yeah, and there's nowhere to go after Jaxson. I mean, if he stays healthy, he's going to start, I would assume, all the rest of the games. That's 14 of them. That's a big sample size right here. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. I agree with you. Malik Nabers, this is a 6th quarterback he's going to play with, I think, right? In what, 19, 20 games?
Yep.
He had a funny line. He said, he said, it doesn't matter. I know that all of them know that they're going to get the ball to number 1, right? That they're going to get the ball to number 1. Well, no, that's the problem. Last week, they did not get the ball to number 1. In the first game, they did not get the ball to number 1 with Russell Wilson. That's an issue. And yes, I agree with you. We will see now if that was a Russell Wilson issue or a scheme issue. You know what I mean? Was that Russell Wilson just, ducking and diving a little bit and not, Russ is not when he came here, everyone said he's not going to throw the ball over the middle of the field in intermediate and short. He's just not going to do it. He'll throw the moon ball. He's not going to throw those intermediate routes over the middle of the field. He's not going to do it anymore. And he didn't. He came as advertised, right? He did not do that. He threw outs, and moon balls. That's what he threw. And that's not a way to run an offense. So I think they will give those opportunities to Jaxson Dart. Now, can he deliver? He's going to see things he hadn't seen before. I mean, preseason was one thing. You played in the preseason, right? And you played in the regular season.
Yes, sir.
Was it different?
Vanilla coverages. You get a little man, you get a little single high, cover 3, maybe a little shell, cover 4, cover 2, but not what the Chargers are going to throw at him on Sunday.
So that's it. He's going to see things he's never seen before. And like I said, he'll make mistakes, and they can't, have his head down. The crowd will be interesting, won't it? Because the crowd wants Jaxson Dart. It's a home game. They cheered when he came in. They booed when Russ came back in, on those 3 snaps. But you know what? That cheering can stop quickly. If they've got 3 points with a minute and a half to go in the first half, and Jaxson Dart has made some nice runs and a couple of good throws, and he missed the 3rd down, and then he got sacked on 3rd down, and there's not much going on. Now the boo boards are going to be out for, Brian Dable and all these other things. So, I think people have to strap in and be ready for a hard ride here. Maybe it looks great early, but the odds are, and history says it probably won't.
Yeah, I'm managing my expectations on this one. It's like you go from this low, and then you get a glimpse of excitement, and the entire fan base, everyone just goes on this high, and then you get let down, and it's like a repeat cycle. So I'm managing my expectations, and I'm hoping that this kid is the kid, because no one wants to go through a whole quarterback carousel anymore. And you just think about what you said earlier, Paul, before I throw the Jermaine Eluemunor and what he's saying about the Dart situation. Do you remember when you were saying, like, Joe Shane was saying, like, they fixed that quarterback room? Like, we were talking about the quarterback room should have a reality TV show, and DeVito's doing progressive commercials. Now we're at week 4, having to throw a rookie in there to quiet some noise and for people to, I guess, save their jobs. It's absolutely crazy in terms of the drop-off in terms of emotions that people can go through. But I got a chance. Let's see what the players are saying about this move, because I got a chance to go into the locker room and speak with right tackle Jermaine Eluemunor, not only about his performance and how well he's been playing this year, but how the offensive line can protect Jaxson Dart and what Jaxson Dart's mobility adds to them doing their job. All right, here's your week 4 London in the locker room. I'm here standing with starting right tackle Jermaine Eluemunor. I got to start with the elephant in the room. Everyone's talking about Jaxson Dart being named starter. I guess what was the first thing that came to your mind when you heard the news, and what was practice like today with him as QB1 officially?
I'd say, found out at the same time everyone else did on social media yesterday, but it was confirmed today. I'd say that we just got to do what we can to rally around him, a young guy starting in the league for the first time against a crazy defense like the one we're about to play against with the Chargers. As offensive line, we got to do our best to make sure he stays protected, stays comfortable behind us, and make sure we keep him clean.
When Brian Dable was talking about the decision to put Jaxson Dart back there, he used the word his athleticism, and you hear people talking about his mobility. So how is it going to be different, I guess, blocking for a guy like Russell Wilson, but for a guy like Jaxson Dart who can get out of the pocket and create with his legs?
I'd say that, you see around the league, a lot of these guys are really good at running. Like you have the Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Cam Wards, Kyler Murray's of the world. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are really good at running, so I think that's where the NFL is shifting to nowadays, and to have a guy back there like that kind of just makes you feel a little bit more at ease, knowing that, if you slip on a block or, you kind of mess up and it's a little muddy, then, he's going to get you out that muddy situation, make you look good. So, a guy like that, it's always a plus to have a guy like that back there.
How does the offensive line feel about their play so far this season? You guys took a lot of heat after that Commanders game. You did a great job against the Cowboys. I guess, what 7 pressures total that game, and then you held up against the Chiefs' defensive line. Where do you feel as though the offensive line is at right now? You feel like you guys have clicked and got something going?
I'd say we're building. It's week 4 now. Sorry, So it's all the same to me nowadays, But we're building, we're getting better every single week, and that's what you can ask for. So with getting AT back and getting that chemistry with him, that's only going to make us that much better.
You graded out pretty nicely, PFF grade against the Chiefs. I mean, how do you feel about how you've been playing personally?
I think there's room for improvement. I'm not where I want to be yet, and I'm planning to be there at the end of the season, but I just got to keep getting better and better.
But how do you, being a leader, a guy that's played a lot of years in this league, how do you galvanize and do your job in terms of leadership?
I lead through my play. I'm not really the most vocal guy, but if you watch me play out there, then that should help motivate people. Because I'm gonna give everything I have every single play, and I feel like there's different type of leaders. There's the vocal ones, there's the physical ones, and I'm more of a physical guy. If you need, like I said, if you need the motivation to go out there and play, I'm not gonna be able to like hype you up. But if you need to watch someone, then you can watch me play and get motivation that way.
Last but not least, got an undefeated Chargers team coming into MetLife Stadium. They're top 5 in a lot of the pass defense categories. How do you guys go out there and get that W, man?
Just make it a physical game. I think that's the biggest thing that you see on tape. They have a good D line, a real physical team. We got to match their physicality. Just go out there and just try to dominate the line of scrimmage. Whoever wins the line of scrimmage is going to win the game. That's how it is every single week in the NFL. So, I feel like we've done better and better, but we haven't had that game where we've truly dominated the line of scrimmage. So, we're working our butts off this week to make it this week.
All right, main show. Good luck out there.
Appreciate you.
Paul, there's a part there where he's talking about how if you miss a block, or you're missing a block in the process of it, having a quarterback with mobility that can get out of the pocket and buy you some time to reconnect, re-engage, and make that play, make that block, that helps them tremendously. That's why I'm looking at this game. I know we were talking about managing the expectations. That's why I'm looking at this game and looking at Jaxson like he may have an opportunity to make some plays, not only with his arm, but his feet as well.
He better protect himself, though, right? I mean, they will do RPO stuff, right? We know they will. They'll do some designed runs, but he can't. That macho stuff, that college macho stuff has to go, because he's a big, strong dude. But there are bigger, stronger dudes out there at virtually every position. And the Chargers will be his first test of that, and so he needs to be on the field, right? Eli Manning, availability, stay on the field. Russell Wilson, throughout his career, available, knew how to slide, knew how to run out of bounds, knew how to take a hit with his shoulder roll and not, take on a guy. Jaxson took on a couple of guys in the preseason.
Yep.
He can't do that. Look, I'm not saying, if it's at 3rd and 7 and he's running and he's at 6 to just run out of bounds. You got to see the sticks, you got to go for it. But look, there will be a time in the next game or 2 or 3 where Jaxson Dart will do something that's either foolhardy or a little careless or a little reckless. That will be, you love that, and Dave will say, I love that aggressiveness, but there's a time and a place for it. He's got to know there's a guy coming behind him. He's got to tuck the ball in, not get it punched out. He's got to not take that hit. In the preseason, we saw him have to go into the medical tent for a concussion check. You know what I mean? Thankfully, he didn't. He cleared of that. So, that I would stress is that, look, you mentioned before it's a must-win game. It's not a must-win game. It's not. They're 0-3. If they're 1-3, they're not back into anything. It will be great if they're 1-3. Great, but we've started the clock again in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? The Giants were 5-4 with Kurt Warner in 2004. 5-4. They won it. They weren't 1-8. They were 5-4, coming off 2 losses, and they said, "Okay." Tom Coughlin said, "Okay, it's my choice. It's time for Eli." Ernie Accorsi back then was like, we're doing okay. Eli can sit and wait. Ernie Accorsi would have been fine if Eli sat just about the whole season or the whole season. Tom said, we're not wasting any more time here. We're getting Eli in the game. What happened? The team went straight down into the toilet.
Yeah.
Lost 6 straight games and completely fell out of playoff positioning, playoff, consideration. Guys, the veterans, Strahan, Toomer, Tiki, Keith Hamilton, were ticked off. Why do we go to this kid and now we're out of it? Now, that's not going to be the case here. I don't think anyone around the Giants is thinking, why are we going to the kid now? But look, they all have to look in the mirror. This is a collective failure. I mean, if they played better, maybe they wouldn't be in this situation. But I do think that Russ played so poorly in two of those games that most of it was on him.
Well, Jaxson Dart is going to have to manage his, his temperament this game, because the home game energy is going to be, that place is going to be on fire when they announce him, because they got to go. They're going to announce the offense this time. Last time they announced the starting lineup for the defense. Malik Nabers will probably go last, but if I'm the Giants, I ask Malik, is it okay if Jaxson goes last?
No.
You gotta let him have it, Paul. You gotta let this crowd hype him up.
No. He'll go second to last or third to last. That's putting too much on him. He's our savior. He's last. Malik is their best player. He can go last. It's fine. It's fine. Malik is this. Jack, they can cheer for Jaxson if he's second to last or third to last. It's okay. It's okay. You're anointing him. He doesn't need to be anointed. He just needs to go in there and play good football. The crowd will be excited. And you know what? If his first pass is intercepted, they won't be excited.
They won't
you know what I
be
mean?
excited.
If his first pass is complete, I mean, as you were at the home opener, right? Everyone was excited. Everyone was excited.
Absolutely.
Excitement. You're a guy who tries to get the crowd going, right? There's a big, try. Yeah, because sometimes it's impossible. It's impossible. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes I see you doing your thing and I'm like, he's doing a good job cheering because the scoreboard says 17-3. What the hell are they cheering about? There's this massive ball of helium, this balloon of helium that you start with. The first quarter.
Yep.
Second quarter, by the end, you got nothing. So I'm just saying, you don't look, if they want to, that's marketing. If they want to announce him last and have him run out, he'll have his face paint and, bask in the glow. That's great. Let Malik do that. You know what? You also have to play a mind game with Malik too. Malik Malik said some things this week, which were, he's like, he didn't say this is great. This is great. Malik just wants to catch passes and win some games. You know what I mean? What did he say last week? We can't win. We can't win.
Yep.
Malik is getting hardened too quickly in his NFL career at age 22. He's having that veneer of losing, which, I wrote about in the Post this week that has just saddled so many of these good players. He's not a good player. He's potentially a great player.
Yep.
That we lose. I mean, he doesn't give a damn who's throwing him the ball. Just throw him the ball and win some games. I mean, he should have his catch in Dallas should have won the game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And yet after the game, it was a little bit like OBJ with his great catch against the Cowboys, right? Yep. He put himself on the map with an unbelievable catch. Oh, by the way, they lost. Oh, by the way, the Giants lost. It sucks the life out of these guys.
All right, Paul, I gotta throw to my interview
that's
with
cheery, isn't it? Very cheery.
You're right, because you can only mask it for so long, especially when you see the behind the scenes videos of Antonio Pierce and OBJ talking to Malik, kind of, I don't want to say consoling him, but just kind of keeping his head up. Those LSU receivers, those Bama receivers, they're not used to this. Like a lot of these guys come from these programs, they're used, like Malik said, you lose, or OBJ said those years, you lose 1 to 2 games at LSU, your season's over. No one cares about the toilet bowl or whatever consolation bowl that you play in with 2 or 3 losses. So those guys come from those type of programs to where it's you bust your ass all throughout the week so that you are hardened and ready for game action in the biggest games, week in, week out. You're ready for that. So you come to this program, you come to this franchise to where that NYG, that logo means a lot. But for recently, it meant a lot in the wrong way. So I could see that Malik Nabers thing is something I'm keeping my eye on, to where I'm like, man, I do not want to waste this guy's career. I want this guy to get some wins, get some marketing, get some TV commercials, all that, because he's a funny dude when you have him off to the side and you just talking to him. but will we be able to get to see that OBJ type charisma and personality? Because OBJ, at least, you know, he went to a playoff game here and all, but he was exciting, and there were some wins. So hopefully we can see that from Malik. Paul, I caught up with Bobby Skinner of Giants Nation. We kind of broke down the Dart situation as well, and then we're going to come out of that. We're going to pass it to Paul. You're going to finish this off. Here's Bobby Skinner. My guy, Bobby Skinner, Giants Nation. Are you ready? You ready to darty? You ready for a darty party this Sunday, week 4?
Always ready to darty. You know, we were talking pre-show. It's like, man, 0-3, but Dart just injects life into you. We're like, all right, this is what I am invested in, covering the New York Giants, being a fan of the New York Giants. Like, this is what I have my investment in for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm like, it's that movie Old School. He's like, you just caught a dart in your neck, man. Like that it's just, well, he didn't have energy off of that one. But I mean, this move kind of breathed some life into, or rebreathed some life into the fan base, and hopefully breathe some life into the offense. I know you do a great job with the breakdowns. Watching Russell Wilson, 2 out of these 3 games, obviously the Cowboys game was the Cowboys game, but when you break down the Russell Wilson tape for the Commanders and the Chiefs, did Brian Dable make the right decision?
Of benching Russell Wilson, absolutely. It was almost infuriating watching Russell Wilson, especially week 3 against the Chiefs, where it's like, man, you're running a concept that has the middle of the field wide open. This is what, and you're bailing from a clean pocket and rolling out for what reason? Or why are you forcing into double coverage when the thing that the play is designed for? So it's not even just making, oh, he made some mistakes. It's like, how do you call plays for a guy who the middle of the field in between, 10 and 25 yards is just totally eliminated from the game plan? Like, I couldn't imagine trying to do that. And then when you're going to play the Chargers and their defense that throws a million different looks at you, that would be like, I just don't know how you game plan with that. The question is this going to help or hurt Jaxson Dart? And that's the reality. That's why I thought they could keep Jameis as QB2 if they were in a scenario where they felt they had to bench Russ and give them some buffer time. But we're all going to figure out, like, how ready is Dart and how will he respond to some bad play if that's what happens. If it's good, it's good. But if it's bad, is it something he's going to bounce back from, or is it going to harm his future development?
Yeah, and everyone talks about this kid's moxie. He's got the moxie. He's got the confidence. Everyone has the confidence in the NFL, and especially here in New York, I feel like, until it all goes bad. And what I mean by all goes bad, like you're struggling, you're not playing like the player you are, that you've been in high school, that you've been throughout college, the SEC, ACC, you've had that success. Then you kind of come here and struggle a bit. Then you hear the boo birds, or you hear the fans, you hear the grumbling, you go on Twitter or X or whatever. That starts to kind of feed at your confidence and at your moxie. So I'm wondering, when it comes to a Jaxson Dart, the kid who has, unlimited swagger, unlimited moxie out there, how mental tough he can be if he struggles a little bit. And I was talking to Brian Burns, and he was saying how the defense needs to put him in a situation to where he can succeed and not play savior football. But I think it's not on the defense. I want Mike Kafka and Brian Dable to call plays to this kid's strength, and that's his mobility. Get him out of the pocket, move the pocket, let him use his feet. That's something Russell Wilson did not do or couldn't do, but I think that just his mobility alone, scramble drill alone, is going to inject some sort of life into this Giants offense. Hopefully it's sustainable.
Yeah, especially early on. Like, I would encourage him, and I think that was something they did well with Daniel Jones in 2022 that you saw. Like, if you ask, what was the thing that improved from Daniel Jones' game in 2022? It was, hey, when something's not there, don't be afraid to try and extend this play with your legs, whether you run or throw the ball down the field. And especially playing against the Chargers, there's going to be times where Dart's confused, and I would instill in him, like, hey, you can't scramble every single play. You got to have some confidence in the concept. But if you really are just, your internal clock is going and it's not there, use your legs, extend. And I always go back to that preseason game, the final one, the 50-yard Gunnar Olszewski play.
Yep.
That was a terrible read by Jaxson Dart. And I think we even talked about this on this show, but he used his legs to extend, and then you end up getting, your most explosive play out of the preseason. from it. So that's what I would have for him. And like you said, like the swagger and the moxie, the defense can put them in a situation where they're not playing 13 down at the end of the game, because that's when you saw Dart at his worst at Ole Miss, against Florida, LSU, Kentucky, where he kind of just defaulted to just throwing the ball down the field, and it led to a lot of turnovers and bad plays.
Yeah, I mean, if the defense, like you just look at the Chiefs game, chance for 3 turnovers. They dropped 2 interceptions, and then the scoop and score that they could have had. And just think of what that could have done. And if talking to Brian Burns, it's like, and they want that turnover. They've been talking about the turnover chest. They've only got 1 on the year.
Yeah.
That can inject some life into an offense. You get this kid a short field. And I was saying to someone, like, he doesn't even have to throw the touchdown pass on that scoring drive. Just lead it. And it's going to – if we want to help, or if the Giants offense wants to help Jaxson Dart, they have to run the football. Going into this year, I did not think the run game was going to be as bad as it is right now. Now, Cam Skattebo has kind of come in and done his whole Ahmad Bradshaw type thing. We love the way he runs. He runs angry. They have to get – they're like, you're relying on 2 rookies. If you think about it, you are relying on 2 rookies to save this offense. Do you think what are your thoughts on Cam Skattebo so far?
Skattebo is exactly who we thought he is. He simply breaks tackles. That being said, his vision is kind of bad. There was 4 or 5 runs, and a couple of them ended up being like 10-yard runs where it's like, this is the wrong read.
Yeah.
You're not pressing the hole as long enough. But he just breaks tackles, and that was the scouting report coming out of Arizona State. It's like, yeah, there's some red flags here, but the guy simply just breaks tackles, and that's what he does. I also think the Giants finally did something besides just surrendering their run game like they did the first 2 weeks, where they used that full house, pistol package with Theo Johnson and Bellinger in the backfield. They faked, they had wan'dale go in the backfield on a fake reverse to keep the defense honest on the backside. They're not good enough to just block them up front and run inside zone and run duo all day. They've got to throw some bells and whistles. And then the fact that you had Jaxson Dart, now you start have to respecting the zone read a little more. They have to realize their run game needs a lot of effort, and you can't just line up and run with this group.
Yeah, you talk about how many looks that the Chargers defense is going to throw at them. I'm kind of thinking now, I think Brian Dable and Mike Kafka kind of throw out the entire playbook in terms of when Russ was the quarterback and kind of call it or refine it or fine-tune it to Jaxson Dart and his strengths. I think we're going to see that pistol look a lot more. We'll see a lot more orbit motion. And I think just doing things that can give him space, whether it's a throw in space or some sort of design run in space. I think this Giants offense is going to look completely different this week against the Chargers than it's looked all throughout throughout the first 3 games. Malik Nabers, his 6th quarterback since he's been here. Where are you with the whole remember last year you caught a bad rep because some of the things that he said, which I had 0 problem with. Where are you right now with Malik Nabers? Can you evaluate his greatness?
Yeah, I mean, he was, leading the league in receiving after week 2. I don't know where he ranks now. It's clear he's a top 5 to 10 receiver in the NFL, and if he's in your only in your top 10 list, it's because you think there's just so much great wide receiver play in the NFL. There's going to be he is a true wide receiver 1. There's going to be moments where he says stuff that's going to get under people's skin. But that is on the Giants. When they drafted Malik Nabers, and I even go back to Odell, and I've been plenty critical of Odell. You have this talent. You know how you don't have issues with him? You win games. That's the reality. You can't just have him, if 100-yard games aren't going to satisfy him forever. You have to win games. So, if they have another season like they did last year, I guarantee you week 13 after some loss, Malik Nabers is probably going to be throwing Brian Dable or Mike Kafka or whoever under the bus. You have this talented player. Don't give him an opportunity to be unhappy.
Who do you think is going to play above the numbers on Sunday in terms of this Giants offense? Who do you think is going to benefit the most of having Jaxson Dart at quarterback?
Who's going to – I'm going to say Darius Slayton. And it's not just he's going to go out there and ball out or whatever, But with Russell Wilson, it was just he was never part of the plan at all. And you saw it in training camp as well, where it's just like, hey, we're going to Malik Nabers and then Wan'Dale Robinson and then checking down to the running back. So I'll say hopefully benefits the most. We don't know what Jaxson Dart's going to do until we see him actually out there. But he was just an afterthought in the offense. I think Wan'Dale will go back to more of his quick game stuff. Malik Nabers is Malik. And then the tight end room is really where I have no idea how much usage those guys are going to get.
I think it's going to be Theo Johnson, someone from the tight end room. You looked at some of the touchdowns that Jaxson Dart threw in the preseason. It was him and Dolchik was eating. He was because they had good quarterback play. We were able to evaluate Thomas Fidone and see how. I'm excited about that kid in the future. But I think Theo Johnson is going to eat, man. Russell Wilson, like you said, didn't throw the football across the middle. When he did against the Cowboys, that kind of got Theo going, but we just didn't see that in the Chiefs game or in the second half of the Cowboys game. I look at Jaxson Dart kind of buying a little bit of time with his feet and seeing a big 6'5", 6'6" target right there in the middle of the football field that he can get the ball to. So I think it's going to be Theo Johnson, man. And what expectations, to close this out, where should fans have their expectations on Jaxson Dart and just this Giants team going into Sunday against the Chargers?
Against the Chargers specifically, I mean, I would expect him to struggle, and that's part of playing quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. And again, he was a late first-round pick, which means they likely had a day 2 grade on him. They technically passed up on him in the first round when they went Abdul Carter over him. And then that Chargers defense is going to throw a ton at you. But I do think Brian Dable is going to try and simplify it. It's going to be a lot of RPOs like he had at Ole Miss, using his legs. Not going to put too much on his plate, but I do think there's going to be struggles because he puts his eyes down, when there's pressure, and there might be a lot of pressure this week too, even though the tackles have been good. So I think it's going to be a struggle against the Chargers. It really should be about growth for Jaxson Dart. It's going to turn into a situation where people are trying to save jobs and stuff, but to be fair to Jaxson Dart, it should be all about just growing as a player.
So the season's a wash then.
As far as winning, I mean, unfortunately, I think, they're 0-3. I think, and this is where I talk about Jaxson Dart being the jangling keys. Like, if Jaxson Dart plays well and they're still losing games, that's not a reason, I think, to keep people around. That means, okay, we've got found money for the next guy, and we've got a quarterback that we can at least move forward with, and not having conversations of a new GM. Like Jaxson Dart's year should be independent of what the defense is doing, what you look at the roster build, Brian Dable as his coaching staff as a whole. Like, Jaxson Dart's play should be about Jaxson Dart's development. He's a late first-round rookie being put in week 4. If he's good, then hey, then you're in a great spot. But it should be about developing him.
All right, Bobby Skinner, appreciate you hopping on, my man. Paul, everyone talks about his mobility and his athleticism. That is what we need to see. That is what the people at MetLife Stadium want to see and want Jaxson Dart to put on tape on Sunday. But now, my friend, it's time to pass it to Paul. The schedule. When the NFL schedule makers made the Giants schedule, someone had beef with someone within the organization because it is a gauntlet. Did you, now looking at the schedule, not only these first 3 games, but looking ahead for the rest of the schedule, does it make sense that the Giants schedule is what it is?
Look, this is the way it spits out. You know what I mean? They finished in where they finished in the same place that last place, and the 49ers finished in last place. So they have to play the 49ers this year. The 49ers are last place team? I don't think so. Look, we knew it was going to be tough. It is very tough. Having said that, the Cowboys are not a great team, and they should have won last week, in week 2, and they didn't. So that's on the Giants. People say, well, why Jaxson Dart now against the undefeated Chargers? Well, first of all, I don't know if the Chargers are a 13-win team this year. I don't know that. I think they're very well coached. They have a tremendous quarterback. Herbert is really kind of feeling himself getting into it, but I don't, their defense, I think, is ranked 8th in the league. I don't think it's a great defense. If you go man to man with that personnel that the Chargers have on defense, I don't think it's great. I think they play very well together. Um, Najee Harris is out. They don't have proven running backs, right? I think Hampton, a rookie, is going to have to start. Yeah, so I mean, there's no reason why the Giants need to give up a ton of rushing yards to a rookie running back. Offensive line is good. Joe Alt had some problems last week. I mean, I just don't look at this as a mission impossible game. Now you're saying that's crazy, 0-3 versus 3-0. Chargers are coming across the country. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe the Chargers are due to have not a great game. There was no great time. You say, okay, let's wait. Let Russ play against the Chargers and then start Jackson on the road against the Saints who aren't any good. Yeah, but now you're starting on the road. Superdome's a tough place to play. Saints aren't very good. It's just, you might as well, then you have the Eagles in a short week. So yeah, it comes quickly. That's what the NFL is.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they can't have a few MAC teams and Albany and UMass.
Can't put UMass on there.
Or Albany. You can't schedule now and give them $500,000 and say, we need, Jackson needs a safe landing spot here. This is the schedule. It's tough. It's big boy league. We get it. It'll be fascinating. I said a lot about he's going to make mistakes and we have to lower expectations, but it's the only thing that can breathe life into the season now for a short time. Now, if it doesn't look good, the life is going to be sucked out of it pretty quickly, but this is a long haul thing for Jackson. So now it's about, okay, let's say they lose the game. How did Jackson look? Okay. And then next week, whether they win or lose, did Jackson look a little better? Did he look a little better the next week? Then did he take a step back? It's not going to be a straight upward curve. Go up, then okay, a little bit down, and we'll see at the end of this how he looks, whether Giants are excited and their fans are excited. I can't wait for Jaxson Dart in 2026. Or he didn't look very good. He may not be the answer. What does that mean for Brian Daboll? What does that mean for Joe Shane? It means a lot for everybody. They're he's the guy who they, what did Brian Daboll say when the night they drafted him? I'm banking on you, right?
Yeah.
I'm banking on you. And what did Jaxson Dart say?
I'm ready.
Smart man.
Smart. Ooh, I love it.
Smart man.
Hey.
So, it's fun. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. And it will be the stuff of legend if he does well, right?
Yep.
Remember, another one that I loved was, right after they completed the trade, right? Right after they completed the trade and, Joe's on the phone, says, okay, they'll do it. Okay, we good? It's done. And Daboll is sitting like behind Shane, and then Daboll puts his hand on Shane's shoulder, and he goes, "Good job, Joseph," with intensity. Good job, Joseph. Have you ever heard anyone call Joe Shane Joseph?
No.
Right?
No.
He said, good job, Joseph. Like, we got him. We have hope now. And they knew they had Russ.
Yeah.
But he's, Brian Daboll has never been the same level of excitement talking about Russ as he has been talking about Jaxson Dart. So here we go. It is must-see game. It is fascinating to watch. Is it the beginning of an era? Is it not? I've been doing it a long time. There's not a lot of these happen. What happened with Eli? They got Kerry Collins. They got Dave Brown. Years ago was the starter after Phil Simms. This is a legit first-round pick who people are excited about. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, and we'll be here next week to chronicle it, and we'll see. Maybe we'll be talking about some good stuff.
Well, hopefully we'll look at it. We're going to revisit that moment with the good job Joseph and Brian Daboll. Like, he is on the crosshairs now. This is it for him in terms of we can't point anywhere else now. This is your quarterback. This is your guy. Hopefully he can come in and save the seats, just save whatever that needs to be saved for different people in different positions and situations. We'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on who should the Giants to introduce last, Malik Nabers or Jaxson Dart. We should clip that. I'm gonna get our social team to clip that, and we start a poll there. But I think you're on to something with that one, Paul. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Make sure you check out the post-game live show minutes after the game. Hopefully we're breaking down a W and not the fourth loss of the season. For Paul Schwartz, I'm Brendan London. Thank you for watching another episode of Blue Rush.